I'm Coach Brian Prana. I have been in the health and fitness nutrition industry, lifestyle, for the last 2 decades. So back in 2004, I got an exercise nutrition degree. From there, I was a personal trainer for many years. I've owned gyms for about 5-6 years. I've been doing the last decade, I've been talking to people about their everyday life, helping them lose weight, improve their digestion. I even helped a lady, Sophia. She was an Olympian at Paris and Tokyo Olympics. A gentleman's going to do a 24-hour mountain bike race next weekend and all in between. So I've had a significant amount of conversations. I'm 41. I have 4 kids. Oldest is in a freshman now. And then we got 3 others that are in middle school. So busy. That's something we're going to talk about. I think every single person I've ever spoken to attaches the word busy to their lifestyle. So let's talk about what today's conversation is going to be and the agenda and lay it out. So I'm pulling it up now. It's loading. And so this will be an audio, and also the love having engagement. So chat box is open. You can comment below and what you things that you want to learn or engage, or there's certainly some talk breaks as well. Today, better balance, better you. What does that mean? And getting in the image here, we have the Zen of balancing the life. So a work situation, we got a cat at home, and how do we manage the day-to-day life that everyone has to deal with? You gotta make a living. You probably want to have a family of some sort or a social network that you want to spend time with. And how does everything manage and navigate with time and stress and just enjoying your. So today's agenda, the overview. Number 1 is what is balancing this? So what's productivity, time management, multitasking. I know everyone on here loves to multitask, me included, but I assure you it's not quite what it is. Overworking, it's a real thing, burning out, and setting priorities. Like that part 6 will be about how do you regain control over some of your life, your lifestyle, so that you are in the driver's seat of the day-to-day happenings and not just left to whatever the day has for you, or has in store for you. So how do we find balance in this busy, on-demand world? We all have work, family, friends, appointments, bills, all sorts of different to-dos. My to-do list seems to keep growing every day. I get some stuff checked off and more stuff gets added. I've got my work list. I've got my honey-do list. I've got other people's lists of things that need to get managed as well. And these are part of just adulting. I think, especially in my life, I don't really feel that maybe my parents did the best job of equipping me with understanding what adulting was actually going to look like, be like, maybe because they didn't quite know either. But we have to figure out how to prioritize and address everything and that task and demand that comes your way in a way that still gives you some control over your everyday life. So that time management is something really important. A lot of times people will come to me, let's say about 60% of people want to lose weight and get in better health that way. They're all like, oh, what's the meal plan? I'm like, well, let's talk about time management and how are you actually using your time. Oftentimes people don't go to bed on time. They don't wake up on time. They don't go to the grocery store when they should. They don't do any form of food preparation when they should, and therefore they're way less prepared to be successful in this whole process of putting food on a plate and eating it and doing it in a way that helps them reach their goals. So yes, time management ends up being quite a bit of our conversation. So of course, planning in advance is something we all need to do. Some people are way better organizers and planners than others, and other people just want to wing it every day. I assure you, no matter where you're at on that spectrum, human beings need to have some level of organization, structure, routine, habits in their daily lives. They can't just wake up and let the wind blow where it may. Certainly that's fun some days, But if that's generally your lifestyle, you may or may not be as productive as you'd like to be. More often than not, you won't be that productive. Prioritizing your health in this situation. Of course, a healthier you, then everyone gets a better version of you. We want you to be your best. Want you to smile. Want you to have energy when you show up wherever you're going. Be the life of the party if that's your energy, or be that really great friend that people enjoy when they show up. We always want to be focused and present, of course. Like, the present is the only thing that all of us have together in common. Is right now. We're all living this experience on this floating rock in the solar system right now. So we want to be focused and present to whatever tasks that are on hand so we can accomplish them. Whether it is a work task or a friend task or something, then we can move forward. Avoid things that hurt rather than help, i.e. the multitasking. Most people are awful at multitasking. They just aren't that good at it. There's a very, very slim amount, and we'll talk about that, and there's a study that usually gets referenced in the slide deck here. Now, measurement and assess. We got to measure and assess. When it's all said and done, if I'm working with someone, I just kind of jokingly say, we're going to do the scientific method. We're going to test, we're going to observe, and we're going to retest. That's it. That's really how this works when it's all said and done. So with productivity, how do we actually accomplish more with less? That's what everyone in this world is trying to do. Let's get more for less. More money, less time. More stuff, less money spent. More service, less money, in a sense, to get that value. So as we define what productivity is in the first place, it's really the relationship between quantity and quality of the output and the resources that you produce. Most companies produce goods and or services, so the ability to keep a high quality service or a product is the goal, so that the end user gets to have the experience they're looking for with that product. I had to buy, literally just came like an hour ago, we have an iRobot and the brush unit broke. Somehow I guess we have a couple animals in this hair, and so it does a really good job. It only took a year, but it ended up breaking one of this pieces, so I had to buy another brush motor. And I'm hoping that the quality of the replacement will last at least another year, so that I don't have to keep buying this part from that robot vacuum and stuff. So that's just an example of quality in a product, and making sure that what you get is, or what you bought is what you get. What they promise is what you get. So higher productivity means you're accomplishing more with the same or less amount of resources, and your output is far greater in terms of value while keeping the quality the same. So say, can you produce the same quality of service with one less employee? That's on the team. That's a relative concept, and oftentimes companies will task their employees to do if there's some sort of a budgetary issue or finance issue or whatever. Those are things that actually happen, and it's not great. Now, what happens when we're actually productive? Well, of course, we're going to have great output. So we're able to do more in less time. We're more efficient, more effective. We produce more with less error, less resources, less time. My buddy that I did a run this morning. It's still beautiful out. It's definitely fall time. It's getting cold out, but today it was like 65-ish, 60-ish. It's a little breezy, but beautiful to run. And he has a company that does security, home, audio, visual type stuff. So a lot of electric work. And we were in the middle of a run, and one of his team members needed something, and this was a productivity issue. The person didn't know where they were going, so then they had to go check with Chris to figure out where they're going, and it interrupted what he was doing in the moment, which was taking a break from work to focus on his health, and that's what we were running. So in that situation, his team was less productive, which caused more stress, and took longer to do. Now, a greater accomplishment. Who doesn't feel better when they're able to get more done, create more accomplishments, win more awards, grow personally? That's always what we want to see in everyday life, what most people strive for in their day-to-day. Certainly less stress. Nobody wants to show up at work feeling stressed because of the outputs are in higher demand than you have the capacity to deliver on. That's a really stressful situation. Hey, all of a sudden we have a deadline tomorrow at 5 p.m. and it's Thursday at 2:30 or 2:13 here, my time. That can pose a significant amount of stress on someone to accomplish a task that might feel like it needs enough time to get through next Friday. It'd be a reasonable amount of time to get it done. So stress goes through the roof, more work, more stress, more tension. And ultimately can lead to burnout. So if we're more productive, then we experience less stress, less burnout, and we're able to keep managing and not feeling exhausted. So what are some of the hacks around greater productivity? Number one is schedule. I live and die by my schedule. It tells me what I'm doing next so I can stay focused on the task at hand. I have a variety of different client appointments most days of the week. Then I have kid time that I need to drop my kids off, pick them up from school or sport activities. Tonight there are 2 different performances, soccer teams in the playoffs. My son is doing steel drums and orchestra concert tonight, so divide and conquer to make sure that our kids get where they need to. I'm going to the soccer game. My wife's going to the performance. Fortunately, I was able to see him perform this morning, which was fun. But you got to block the time off to have space to be able to do all these things. And most importantly, you have to stick to it. If you don't stick to it or you don't create a reasonable enough amount of time to do it, then you create more stress and ultimately less productivity. Limiting distractions. Oh my gosh, so many challenges around distractions. Even when I'm trying to accomplish something, I'm doing some email series right now, and it's like, oh my goodness, like everything keeps interrupting me to just like sitting down and writing. And it's all my clients' needs, it's my wife's needs, it's my kids' needs, it's my own needs, like whatever. Like I got to eat. Like right before we got done, I could have worked on the email stuff, but I had to eat so that I don't have to eat again until like 5 or 6 tonight. So I stopped what I was doing and I ate after I ran, which is logical, and I had open time, but I could have done other stuff too. But there's always distractions, and your ability to mute and disconnect from those is going to create way higher levels of productivity. Even making sure that you don't allow someone to just blindly come into your office, so to speak, and just take up 30 minutes of your time. That's very disruptive to you getting what's important for you. Now, certainly there can be time scheduled for that situation most of the time. Certainly there's one-offs that it has to happen now, but oftentimes we're like, hey, I'm doing this right now. Can we talk at 4 o'clock today? I have time available. Then you can push it off and then be focused and present for when that happens. Getting adequate amount of sleep. Obviously, the more rested you are, the more you're able to handle it. The more resilient you are, the more recharged, the more energy you have to face the tasks at hand that show up for you. Keeping clean, a clean workspace, clutter-free ideally, eliminates a lot of commotion and fogginess, so to speak, in your brain. The more tidy you can be and continually be, the better you're going to feel. So we definitely always encourage keeping stuff clean. I had a client that every 3 or 4 weeks, we definitely had to go through like a purge phase in a sense of where she had to go around her house, pick things up and move them out of her house, because somehow like her and her family of 4 just kept collecting things, as most of us do. Unfortunately, we are definitely in a consumer type lifestyle, so things just show up and they do build up and they create clutter and challenge. Eating healthy, of course. I mean, that's how I make a living, is getting people to eat healthier. By eating whole foods, proteins, vegetables, fruits, starchy carbs, healthy fats. You eat the right amount of food to meet your overall daily intake. You are then able to keep your energy up, keep your body weight stable, which is so important. Nobody wants to gain weight, especially as the holidays come up. We want to avoid the holiday weight gain here as we go. Talking about time management. There's just been snippets of that the whole way through here. So how do we make the most of the one resource that we all have equally? 24 hours in a day. Well, it can be somewhat shocking to how people spend their time these days. A full-time employee will work about 8.5 hours, and then even up to 5 hours on the weekend or so. Like, holy moly, that's a lot of extra time if people are doing that, working on the weekends, especially if they are, say, the business owner. That can be challenging to you actually living a life. Leisure time. People are watching screens like crazy. Mobile time is up in an astonishing amount. The rate of distraction and time spent scrolling on your if your thumb gets more movement than your feet do, and than from walking, you are definitely spending way too much time on your phone and not enough time doing something. Yesterday I talked to someone I hadn't known. Her name was Lori. Lori, since COVID, has had knee issues. She's put on 50 pounds. She went to a remote work situation, so she sits at home. She even had a sitting injury. She sat so much that she actually had to go to physical therapy because there's pain in her body from sitting so much. We got a lot of work to do to be able to get her moving in the right direction again and start really assessing how do we get away from the screen and get actually into living life again. So where do you actually spend your time? One thing you really do is a time audit and see how well your time is actually spent. I've had people do this every 15 minutes, write down what you have been doing, and then you will see how productive or wasteful you are. I know everyone can say they're busy, but I promise you, everyone has time in their day that they are wasting, that they aren't as efficient. Now, we don't have to be like robots or something, but there's like 30 minutes in your time that you aren't seeing because of how you are operating day to day. And you could use those 30 minutes of time to just check out of the ongoing challenges of what's going on. You could go out and walk. You could go eat some good food. You can talk to someone, maybe someone that brings joy. That would be really important. Now, what gets scheduled gets done. That's always a term that I always focus on. And we can use technology. We, of course, want to limit it on some level because it is definitely challenging and time-sucking if not controlled well. Even to the point where I've put on a newsfeed eradicator. It's called Newsfeed Eradicator. It's a Chrome extension. So if I log into Facebook to do some social media work about promoting good health or a nutrition tip or something, then guess what happens? There's nothing there. There's nothing to go scroll on because the newsfeed, the app itself, the extension, on Chrome, blocks it, and I don't get distracted. And go on, do what I need to, then leave and not play that game because it is a big challenge here. So there's also things on your phone and your computer to help you understand what and where and how you spend your time on. On Apple, at least, there is screen time. You'll find it inside your settings. About one or two swipes down, it says screen time. You click on it, you can turn it on, and then all of a sudden you start seeing where you're spending your time on your phone. And it can be really insightful for you to help set up limits or just acknowledge and be aware of where you are spending this time. So how do we actually evaluate findings and on making sure you're productive, but also you're managing the time as well efficiently? A simple question: am I distracted on certain tasks? And which tasks do I often end up being more distracted on? It's something important. If you notice that there's certain behaviors that you do that often lead to more distraction, then you need to troubleshoot, problem solve to help make sure that isn't an issue. An example would be every time I turn on my computer, my notifications in the top right corner go haywire, and it pulls all my attention from me doing what we all should do when we start work, is the most important tasks, the things that need done now. We do those first, but because that box keeps going off and notifying, then I get distracted. And then you end up doing email instead of that thing, and you don't actually get the thing done, and you have to schedule more time for it. Are you actually allocating your time appropriately? Do you have enough time to spend in each of these buckets so that you don't feel rushed, you don't feel overwhelmed, and you can actually get something done? Do I find myself wasting time? Again, certain situations you will waste time. I waste time. Everyone that I've ever talked to wastes time because that's just a human trait. Now, certainly some people are way more efficient and effective than others, but we all waste time in some capacity. So be reasonable. That's one of the life hacks here is we want to be patient. Time management is a skill set that you can improve upon. There are people that coach on time management. There are programs, courses, books, webinars, online courses, things that help manage time better with all sorts of different tricks and tactics and different things to make sure that you learn and develop that skill so you can improve it drastically. I think oftentimes just being aware of how you're using your time in the first place pays dividends for sure. Set realistic deadlines. Well, assess your ability to manage your time well, but do it so against reasonable expectations. So like that example I said a little bit ago about, Friday, and like just over 24 hours here, we have a sudden death impact collision course headed our direction for this deadline that came out of nowhere. That creates a lot of stress, a lot of problems, and operational situations that show up. We want to make sure that you set a reasonable time. Like, hey, nothing's actually going to get done here in 24 hours. We actually need like 48 hours. So can we push this to like Tuesday and having a deliverable then? Because on Friday and Monday, we can actually spend our time, energy, and resources more in an effective way to get that task accomplished. And then you get it done. Always celebrating your success. Life is a journey, not a destination. And we want small incremental improvements all the time. Every time I get on a phone call with a client of mine, I always start up with successes. It puts you in a solution-oriented mindset that you see opportunities available to you to improve your situation so that you can keep the momentum going. That's incredibly important to keep motivation, keep your willpower up, keep your focus, and obviously keep progress. Creating a to-do list. And back in the day when I worked at a gym, they cut scrap paper into quarters, and they'd have a stack of them like this big at the fitness desk, it was called. And I would grab one and I'd write my to-dos on it, or I'd write a workout on it, and then I'd put it in my pocket, and I'd get home, and then I'd pull it out of my pocket and put it on the counter, and then I would leave it. And I'd do that all the time. And my wife was like, Ryan, your scrap papers are killing me. Going to clutter. So it was kind of like a running joke in a sense, or an annoyance in a sense, for her to always see these scrap papers just stacking up. And then I have to like collect them and move them for more to collect. So when we write stuff down, it gets it out of our mind and into the paper. And it provides a sense of ease up in your brain, allowing you to be able to think, get resourceful, problem solve, troubleshoot, alleviate anxiety building or depression sinking your energy because of a certain situation. It can alleviate stress. It allows you to plan out your day, your week, what's important to you in your life. That's really something that is worthwhile to make sure you're staying strategically ahead of the game, so to speak. So we take advantage of idle time. What I call this is net time, no extra time. It's not my original, I've heard it before, but this idle time, we want to find abilities. So whether you're commuting, you have maybe you're doing chores and you can listen to a podcast or something, or someone else is doing something for you. There's times available that you can do a little bit of multitask, like commuting. I'm moving my body to the place it needs to be at, but I don't have to drive, and therefore I'm able to then be able to just operate. Respond to emails, reconnect with friends, on phone calls. Oftentimes I encourage clients to walk and move a bit more. That's such an easy time to be able to get out and get moving. And meditate, relax, pause, take a breath, get your Zen on, and be able to refocus yourself. Having some idle time in your day can allow you to recharge yourself and put you in the driver's seat, so to speak, and therefore you'll be able to actually be way more productive then. So let's chat. Let's hit those Q&A, or the chat box, here. And so what are some other activities to do with your idle time for you? For me, some of the activities that I can do with my idle time that is, say there's transition happening in my family, it's just trying to connect with my kids. That's really important. Time to be able to do that. Say coming home, on the drive home, it's a great time to try and connect with them. Or we actually, a lot of times we do podcasts, audiobook. Can't tell you how many audiobooks I've listened to in the last couple of years, because I realized my kids weren't going to talk to me and I need to keep them occupied. They're just ornery middle schoolers at the time. So we would listen to audiobooks and listen to all sorts of different kinds. So it's going to be a long memory that they'll have of me. Like, hey, Papa always had us listening to audiobooks when we drove places. So, and keeps them quiet too, because they're actually invested in the story being told. Right now we're doing one on a sea. There's some ships. There's some marine attacks happening, and so it's interesting. A secret island with special advanced technology. So those are things that we're doing right now. We got another person here walking on a treadmill if it's not too hot outside. I currently don't have that issue. It's getting kind of cold now, but I still have other clients in the U.S., or I have a lady I'll be talking to later today. She lives in Scottsdale and also in Mexico, and she definitely tells me how hot it is still. So it's starting to cool off, but that can be a challenge to get it. So walking on the treadmill, or even walking while you're at work, is a great time to manage doing something else as well. Answer emails, walk on the treadmill. Take a phone call with a coworker or something where it's not like a super duper important situation, then you can walk and move, and kind of two birds, one stone type situation. How do you think these activities would be beneficial? Well, for a lot of times it's like you just feel better about some of the activities you're doing. You feel more accomplished. You feel more energized. Walking really sets the tone here. Moving, especially during your lunch break. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about, is the lunch break. I assure you, working through your lunch is not a good move. As you can tell, nearly 20% of American workers worry their bosses think they're not working hard enough if they're taking regular lunch breaks, while nearly 90% claim that doing so helps them feel refreshed and ready to work again. It's a simple thing. You can't just work all day long and be productive. It's impossible. Humans are not built like that. So we do need to take some time for lunch to pause, to reset, refresh, come back in the afternoon energized and ready for action. So you actually be more productive, your mental clarity, your well-being will be there, you'll be able to think on your toes, think on your feet, the time you can take for healthy habits. Today I was talking to a gentleman in Dallas. He's been eating out and all week. He's like, I don't have an extra half hour. Well, then he tells me that he's eating out with his work friend every day. Well, if you pack your lunch, you can eat that in 5 minutes, and then you can spend the other 40 minutes walking, because we agreed that at minimum to do a lunch run was 45 minutes, at minimum more like an hour. So if he just packed his own food, it was easy, edible, then he could be on his way walking, moving, and making more progress for himself. So what is multitasking? It's not a solution for productivity or even balancing everything out. You're like, I'll just get 2 things done here. That's usually not how it goes. We're way more productive at being able to just focus on one thing. So only 2% of Americans or people in general are effective at multitasking. It's a very low profile. Certainly some people are like brainiacs and others aren't. It's just the same thing here. Some people are really good at dividing the brain up, others not so much. So multitaskers are less mentally organized. They struggle from switching from one task to another, have a hard time differentiating relevant from irrelevant details, because if you're switching from one thing to the next, it's hard to pick up where you are at in that new situation, and then oftentimes you forget where you left off. So shifting between them causes challenges and low productivity. So how do we actually prevent multitasking? It goes back to the schedule and the timing. Number 1 is make a list, so you can prioritize what's most important and what is not as important, where you can allocate time to it on your schedule. So, for example, I gave you someone comes up in a meeting, they come up to your office and just step in and start taking over. You're like, hey, I don't know, sir. Hey, John. There's no John in here, so hey, John, can we schedule this for like 3 or 4 o'clock later this afternoon? Right now, I'm like in the middle of something, and if I stop, it's going to cost like an extra half hour for me to figure this out. So can we come back later? It's a really easy ask, and as they should respect your ask and then schedule time with you to figure it out. This limits distractions, keep you moving in a positive direction and staying focused. Bookmark it. One really, really, really important thing is when you come to a task that you do need to switch, you really need to do a great job of detailing where you left off so you can, as quick as possible, get back running on it. It can be pretty true, whereas if people say you get interrupted, it could take you like 10 to 20 minutes to get back into flow of where you were beforehand, because your brain totally, loses track in a sense on what you're doing and why you're doing it. So overworking is such a real thing. I hear it all the time. One of my clients today, she wants to tell me all the time how busy she is. Oh, you don't know how busy I am. I've got such a busy month. I've got this, that, and the other, and I've got all these things. Sounds like she's overscheduled herself and she's no bandwidth to be able to manage some of her own personal goals, because she's spending so much time on her work goals. So we have to find balance for her. Now, more work does not equal higher productivity. There's a gentleman I talked to, he was telling me he made about 100 to 200 phone calls and had the same amount of sales as compared to some of his other people that were calling 1,000 times. That's a significant increase in productivity and a hack where he has found when to call to get someone, even on a phone call, to talk to them. Failing to take regular breaks from sitting and concentrating on something can lead to exhaustion, stress, burnout. Sitting or standing for long periods of time also can create that. Your posture ends up being not as good. Your positioning. I did one of the last ones I've done here is ergonomics last week. And body positioning in your chair and your desk is really important. The ergonomics on this image here, the lady's leaning forward. Her chair looks a bit too high for the ergonomics, and you can see this clutter piling up, so she looks stressed. So she's clearly got a lot of work there, and she's not happy about it. So signs you need a break. If you actually have physical symptoms start showing up, headache, dizziness, your shoulders hurt, you're cross-eyed in a sense, you're daydreaming, you can't focus, all these things really are signs that you need to pause, go get some fresh air, recollect for a few minutes, and then come back in. I've always found that movement really helps people, just gets them more energized and gets blood flowing so they can, again, get back in control of themselves. All right, so how do we actually do this? Again, scheduling breaks, having... Say you need 2 hours to accomplish this, but then you give yourself 10, 15 minutes after that to either step away, get up and walk and move, do a very low energy task afterwards so that you find some balance there. Prioritizing what you need to do most importantly early in the day versus doing it and waiting and putting it off till later. Number 1, you're going to be more tired. Number 2, you're already a couple hours in. Number 3, more responsibility stacks as the day goes on. So you get more tired, more fatigued, more overloaded. Your day changes, and it creates a challenge for you. Something we want to limit distractions. Just like work, like I just got a notification here. It's a distraction. Someone's in my driveway, apparently. So these distractions can be really disruptive to just limiting your productivity overall. And they'll just keep coming too if you're not careful. That's a big one for sure. So prioritize your time. We said we want to unplug too. So technology is going to be really important. It's great. It's amazing, but it also comes at a cost, and you have to make sure that you really manage it very well. So do not disturb. My phone is on do not disturb. My watch should be, apparently. Forgot about that. Making sure that you are not surrounding yourself with more work in certain situations like eating or even sleeping. Leave the screens out of the bedroom. There's other S words that should be happening in the bedroom, like sleep, of course, right? And this then helps you make sure that you can reconnect with yourself and refocus. One of the things I love, especially at night, is doing Sudoku. So my brain completely focuses on numbers. What number goes in this box? And then it really powers me down. Like I'm within 3 minutes, I'm zonked out, ready to sleep, and it's really good. So one of the things about our on-demand society now is a very blurred line between where work ends and life begins, because for the love, I hope that you don't have your work email on your personal phone. That would just not go well for anyone. Unless, again, you're the owner or there's a big amount of value in you managing that. It's just not a good idea. We want to make sure that, say blue light. There's a lot of things on devices now that you can really tone down the blue light, take it out. You can orange out, tint out, reduce white point on your phones or your computers, your TVs and stuff, so it isn't so loud. For me, I really dislike when the screens are too bright. It feels like it's burning my retinas. So I will really turn down the screen brightness, reduce white point, change color tints, grayscale, all things to help tone it down and keep it really quiet in a sense of eye noise or visual noise. Lastly, setting priorities. How to decide what's important or not. Everyone thinks their thing's important. And so John really wants you to stop what you're doing and answer his question right now. But you're like knee deep in something that's important to you. And you're like, do I help John or do I keep helping myself? Well, you reschedule John because what you have is more important. So here's ways to categorize. I love this sheet. I've actually taken a picture of this slide trying to share with people regularly that are trying to manage their schedules better. So Stephen Covey points out we have 4 different quadrants that we can be in. So number 1 is urgent and important. Those are the things that need done first. Usually in the morning you want to get them done. Usually I'm going to do things that are going to need to get done, that have a lot of high value to them. If it's important but not urgent, that's when you can schedule and block time around it. Like an important meeting, you can schedule a day to show up ready to go for that particular topic. Doesn't have to happen right now. Urgent but unimportant. If it's not important to you but it needs done, you could delegate it. Find someone else to do it. So every about 2 to 3 weeks now, my lawn needs mowed. It becomes urgent at that time, but it's not important to me, so I have someone mow it. Urgent. I need food in my fridge, but it's not an important task for me to do in my daily life. So I can then hire a service to go shop for me and deliver to my house so that I save time and energy. Neither urgent or important. We just want to try and really do our best to get rid of them. Saying no really helps quite a bit too. So the power of no is a real thing to help control what's important to you or not. We've got the most important task by Mr. Josh Kaufman, MITs. The most important tasks. These are things that you start your day with. These are the things on your to-do list that are top priority, high urgency, super duper important. So we try and work through those first, and that allows you to get focused on getting other things accomplished at other times of the day so that you actually move your needle forward and you just don't always end up overwhelmed and overworked because you have to do it in weird times of the day like after work hours. That's not fun. Nobody wants to work when they go home after they've spent 9 hours in the workplace doing stuff. Then this task should differ from different other general day-to-day stuff. Food always needs cooked in my house. There's 6 of us. Dishes always need done. Laundry always needs done. We have a lot of furry friends. We need to sweep and make sure our iRobot's functioning. Make sure that it's getting emptied out in a sense. These are all to-dos that have to get done and fit into your day regardless. You're putting your clothes away. It's just a thing that has to happen. So how do we prioritize these things effectively? Well, we review what the goals are. We create positive deadlines around a time frame that you're able to accomplish them in. And we check in and make sure that we're periodically on track. And that's what, say, reviewing your goals, your 6-month review with your boss is like, okay, here's the targets. Here's what we're focused on. Here's what needs to happen. And then that's what happens. And always, as you said before, be realistic. Make sure you have an appropriate amount of time to do it. Now, humans also are very good at this. They will do things in the amount of time allotted. So remember back to your high school days. You would take 2 weeks to do a book project that was due 2 Fridays from now. But if you had 5 days to do it, then you would get it done in that time. So that's something that's really important is the amount of time that you allow yourself. If you're smart, you would do a little bit every day. Most people, they do other things and then they finally prioritize and they cram and get it done then. So I really want to appreciate you today for joining me and focusing on all of what we have for you about productivity, most important tasks, finding some balance in your everyday life with work, with responsibilities of friends, family, and things that you enjoy yourself. So if you have any questions, certainly can comment below. I appreciate that, and really thank you for joining me today.